Welcome to English Research. Step into a world where language meets discovery and every question sparks a new adventure. Prepare to be inspired. Your journey starts here. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, announced Monday that the Trump administration will begin offering $1,000 stipends and travel assistance to migrants who choose to voluntarily leave the U.S. According to DHS, this initiative is aimed at cutting costs, as forced deportations currently average $17,000 per person, including arrest, detention, and removal. In contrast, the stipend and airfare for voluntary departure are significantly cheaper. President Donald Trump has emphasized a hardline immigration stance, vowing to deport millions since taking office in January. However, deportation numbers under Trump, 152,000, since January 20th have fallen short of those under President Joe Biden, 195,000, during the same time frame last year. While Biden faced surges in illegal crossings and rapid expulsions, Trump's administration is now focused on incentivized exits. The voluntary departure plan includes $1,000 stipend per migrant, free airfare to country of origin. DHS says migrants who opt in may help preserve the chance to return legally in the future, though no official legal pathway was detailed. The administration has also applied pressure through heavy fines, legal status revocations, deportations to notorious facilities in Guantanamo Bay and El Salvador. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem emphasized, "If you are here illegally, self-deportation is the best, safest, and most cost-effective way to leave the United States to avoid arrest." A revamped app called CBP Home, formerly Biden's CBP One, has been launched to streamline the self-deportation process digitally. Trump hinted in April that migrants who depart voluntarily might be eligible to return. "If they're good, if we want them back in, we're going to work with them to get them back in as quickly as we can." Still, no formal policy exists to support this claim. 152,000 deportations have occurred under President Trump since he took office on January 20th. That's lower than the 195,000 deportations carried out by President Biden from February to April 2024. Trump's team argues this is due to a shift in strategy, prioritizing voluntary exits over mass raids. Migrants who opt to self-deport will receive a $1,000 cash stipend, paid travel back to their country of origin. DHS stated that voluntary departure may help preserve a migrant's chance to return legally, although no new visa process has been officially created to facilitate this. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said, "If you are here illegally, self-deportation is the best, safest, and most cost-effective way to leave the United States to avoid arrest." President Trump commented in April, "If they're good, if we want them back in, we're going to work with them to get them back in as quickly as we can." The administration also launched CBP Home, a rebranded version of the CBP One app used under Biden, now designed to help migrants schedule voluntary departures. Conservatives have praised the plan as a cost-effective compromise, reducing taxpayer burden and limiting government intervention. Senator Tom Cotton, Republican Arkansas, said, "This is a smart, tough move that puts the burden of departure back on those who broke our laws." Democratic critics, Democrats and immigrant rights groups have expressed concern, calling the program coercive. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat New York, tweeted, "Offering money under threat of detention or deportation isn't voluntary, it's extortion under pressure." Others have raised ethical questions about the mention of Guantanamo Bay and El Salvador as possible destinations for forced deportees. The debate over U.S. immigration policy has become increasingly intertwined with international relations as global migration patterns shift due to economic instability, political unrest, and climate change. The Biden administration has sought to craft a new vision of immigration, balancing humanitarian concerns with national security and economic goals. However, this has led to complex diplomatic negotiations with neighboring countries and beyond. Record-high migration at the U.S.-Mexico border continues, with encounters at the southern border surpassing 2 million in 2024, the highest number in U.S. history. The Biden administration's policies have focused on expedited asylum processes, temporary protected status, TPS, for migrants from certain countries, and increased funding for border infrastructure. However, Republican lawmakers continue to push for stricter enforcement, including calls for border wall expansion and expanded detention. Key international issues affecting U.S. immigration policy include economic crisis in Central America. Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala have experienced growing poverty, gang violence, and political instability, leading to rising numbers of asylum seekers heading to the U.S. The U.S. has tried to work with these countries through aid programs, but critics argue the support has been insufficient to address the root causes of migration. Climate change and displacement. Countries like Haiti, Bangladesh, and Syria are seeing climate-induced migration as extreme weather events, droughts, and rising sea levels force populations to flee. The U.S. has yet to create a comprehensive climate refugee program, leaving many vulnerable migrants in limbo. Conflict in the Middle East. Syria, Afghanistan, and Ukraine have seen massive refugee movements due to ongoing wars. The U.S. has provided resettlement for a portion of these refugees but is facing pressure from international organizations to expand its efforts. As the U.S. faces an ongoing influx of migrants, international cooperation has been key, but diplomatic tensions have also escalated. U.S.-Mexico relations. Mexico has become an important partner in managing migration, agreeing to allow the U.S. to send migrants back while taking in some asylum seekers. However, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has criticized U.S. immigration policies for being too restrictive and failing to address the root causes of migration. The U.S.-Mexico border wall debate continues to provoke tensions, with Mexico's government rejecting the idea of further physical barriers. The European Union. The U.S. has faced criticism from European allies for not fully participating in global resettlement efforts. The EU has provided resettlement programs for refugees from Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, while the U.S. has lagged behind in taking in a similar proportion of refugees. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, has urged the U.S. to increase its resettlement quotas as global displacement reaches record levels. Latin America. U.S. engagement with Latin American nations is critical, especially in relation to Central American migrant caravans. U.S. efforts to stabilize the region, such as economic assistance and political reforms, are seen as critical to stemming the flow of migrants. The immigration debate continues to be deeply divisive in U.S. politics. Some of the key points of contention include Republican push for hardline policies. Biden's immigration reform proposals face stiff opposition from Republicans who argue for more stringent border enforcement. Key proposals include expanding detention facilities, constructing more physical barriers, and limiting asylum eligibility. Biden's efforts at reform. The Biden administration seeks to balance humanitarian responses with national security concerns, focusing on reforms to improve the asylum system and expedite processing times. However, Biden's policies have been challenged by the Supreme Court, particularly in relation to the Remain in Mexico policy, which requires asylum seekers to stay in Mexico while waiting for U.S. hearings. Immigration as a political flashpoint. Immigration has become a central issue in midterm elections and is likely to play a major role in 2024 presidential campaigns. Both major parties use immigration as a tool for rallying their base, making it difficult to reach bipartisan solutions. 2.1 million migrant encounters at the U.S.-Mexico border, FI 2024. 80% of migrants at the southern border are from Central America, Mexico, or the Caribbean. U.S. resettled 12,000 refugees in 2023, compared to EU's 54,000 in the same period. 63% of U.S. citizens favor immigration reform, though opinions on specifics, e.g., border walls, deportations, vary widely. The U.S. faces significant immigration challenges, and how it responds will have long-lasting implications for domestic politics and its role in global affairs. Moving forward, international cooperation will be crucial, especially as climate change and geopolitical conflicts continue to displace millions. Balancing humanitarian responses with security concerns will test the U.S.'s ability to find a middle ground on immigration reform. The relationship between the U.S. and neighboring countries like Mexico and Central America will remain vital in addressing migration's root causes. The United States today stands at a pivotal moment, caught between its historical identity as a nation of immigrants and its modern struggle to manage a global migration crisis. The current immigration debate is no longer just a domestic issue. It is a reflection of America's global leadership, diplomatic strategy, and moral responsibility. While the Biden administration has aimed for a more humane approach compared to past hardline stances, it still faces criticism from both sides, accused by conservatives of being too lenient and by progressives of falling short on promises of compassion and reform. Meanwhile, international partners closely watch how the U.S. responds, as their own migration crises are often shaped by U.S. foreign policy, aid decisions, and asylum commitments. As climate change accelerates displacement, conflicts persist, and inequality deepens, the challenge of immigration will not disappear, it will intensify. The path forward demands policy rooted in pragmatism, diplomacy shaped by empathy, and leadership guided by vision, not fear. Ultimately, how the United States handles immigration in this globalized era will define not only its borders, but its values, alliances, and place in history. If you enjoy the video, please like, subscribe, and share.